6:30, I'd like to go ahead and call the meeting to order. If I could have everybody rise for the pledge, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have no agenda adjustments. 2.1, to approve the minutes of the November 8th, 2023 Board of Directors meeting.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Is Diane online?
Yes.
Okay. Seeing as there's no discussion, I'll call for the vote. With Diane being online, we'll have to do a whole roll call vote. So, Scott?
She's got an item. Maybe she's got an adjustment.
Oh.
I don't know if I'm on enough.
Yes, we hear you. She hear us.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Can you hear us?
sometimes.
We can't hear us.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Shake your head vigorously, Phil.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. The only thing that I was looking at is in 5.3, is, Donna Sauter, I thought it was a health teacher, not the phys ed teacher.
Okay, we'll make that correction. Thank you, Diane. Anything else? Okay. Seeing as there's none, I'll call for the vote. Scott?
Yes.
Laura? I'm sorry, what did you say? Thank you. Bob?
Yes.
Nicole, did you get a chance to read them?
I'm abstaining.
Okay. Christy?
Abstaining.
Brandon?
Yes.
And I'm a yes.
And
Oh, and Diane, I'm going to thank you for reminding me. Thank you. All right, at this time, I'll go ahead and open up the mic to public comment. Please remember when you come up to the mic to say who you are and what town you are from. We'd ask that you not use any names of teachers or students. Anybody online?
I was hoping somebody would go before me. Hi, my name's Dawson Davis. I'm a Litchfield resident. I have 3 kids in the school district. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and also thank you for your service to our community. You've probably not seen my face here before because I've never been here before, and we all just kind of put our faith in you guys, and I feel like you do a really good job, so thank you for that. There's a lot of a backstory of why I'm here tonight. I think that will come to fruition through the course of, if not tonight, future meetings. So I'm not going to go into all of that. But I did just want to express my appreciation to you all and kind of introduce myself. So thanks again for all your hard work. I really do feel like you do a great job. And it's not just because my kids love going to school. It's also because there's a lot of great things going on. So thank you.
Thank you, Dawson. Anyone else? All right, we'll move down to petitions and communications. There are none. So reports, your superintendent's report.
Oh, this is a big. Yowza. Okay. So I'm just going to highlight. This was in your packet, but the superintendent's report. That I highlighted some recent activities, which was this. The central office sent out a December update, and we had 468 views. We have a second RSU4 newsletter going out before vacation to all families that will be posted. We were invited by teachers to witness end of unit assessments, and I had fun with SRO Brown and I visiting cells and giving some feedback and seeing our students with their plant cells and animal cells. We are introducing, I hope people are noticing on our Facebook page, Good News, getting out more things that are going on in the district so people can see all the wonderful things we're doing in our district. So kudos to our administrators and staff getting slides ready. So you'll be seeing more of that. So not just announcements, but also good news. And then, of course, many families attended parent-teacher conference night, so we really appreciate that collaboration with our families. Then with community involvement, I did note here that I attended the Zoom with Litchfield's ad hoc RSU4 withdrawal investigation committee. So I've also watched 2 of the Litchfield Select Board meetings where it was discussed. I have been asked to provide some information, such as enrollment, which is in the packet and online, so people can see that. And there was a reminder that if board members are approached for information, it should come through, I am the public access officer, so any information that people are requesting come through myself, and then I have a procedure that I follow to make sure we're falling in line with that. And I did note here that the next ad hoc committee meeting is December 21st at 6:30. And I also, so just staying informed about what is going on. Oh, is it a different date?
It is.
Oh, it changed.
Yeah, it's,
Okay, that's good. Okay, thank you. January 6th. I am including in the newsletter that goes out December information around the withdrawal committee so that all families know what is being discussed. Put out around all of the music and art teachers have been busy presenting our talented students with their music and art. We also, Kathy Martin and myself, attended a delegate breakfast with Western Maine superintendents, talking to our legislators about bills, things that we're seeing as challenges in our schools for support as they move through the new bills that are on the floor. And then on Friday, I'm attending the advisory meeting at Edward Little High School to see the new satellites programs over there for the Lewiston Regional Technical Center. Has a satellite there, and we have approximately 71 students that participate in Lewiston Regional Technical Center. So excited to see the new programs that are up and running. The other thing that I'll add is Officer SRO Brown gave her update for November, and that she has been supporting the LEAP room. She's been at recess with Libby Tozier and Carrie Ricker. She's been attending trainings around the yellow flag law and about victims of trafficking. She also recently, she didn't note this, but I know she's been working with administrators and staff to set up regular lunch dates with students, visiting classrooms to read books so that students really get to know her and build those relationships with her. So they see that she's not only the person that comes when there might be a difficult problem going on, but she's also there to support the students in the schools. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions? Assistant Superintendent report.
Okay, so I just want to thank our food service department. They provided Thanksgiving meals for all our students and staff. I know Central Office was able to go to Carrie Ricker and enjoy a Thanksgiving meal there, and it was absolutely delicious. So on another note, we are getting ready for possible remote days, and our administrators have put out to families about signing up for a remote meal sign up. It is also on the website, so if any families would like meals on remote days, they're encouraged to sign up ahead of time. We would be providing the meal the day before a remote day would be called. So in order to get that, we need anyone to sign up on the remote meal Google form. Our LPN was hired and started on Monday, and she is doing some training at the middle school and be visiting at all these schools. We like to cross-train all our nurses just in case there's coverage or needs for students. So she'll be, we're happy to have Erin Reedy joining us and starting that process. Our website, or especially in my areas, has been updated. You will notice that the presentation tonight that the administrators will be doing will be added to the assessment section. So I know there has been a lot of conversation about how we're doing on assessments, and so you'll be able to access that. As well as you can see, November 6th, we got access to our spring 2023 data. Please know that the ESSA dashboard only has data up to 2021, and so you will see the preliminary data on my side of things on the ESSA site as well as the assessment section. When the ESSA dashboard, which is a lot of where our communities and the public grabs data from, is outdated, when it is updated to the 2023, I will let you know that. And anyone that needs support in looking through the ESSA dashboard, I'd be happy to walk them through that. I've been asked to attend a DOE meeting tomorrow in Augusta to go over NWA reports for parents to give feedback on how better to explain the data, and also explaining the students' reports and how parents can, what questions parents can ask when they go to a parent-teacher conference to understand how they can support their child and also better understand where their child is in comparison. We've been working with our Oak Hill High School ELA department just to kind of revamp looking at student engagement, looking at our standards, and finding some really interesting ways to find assessments, alternative assessments for students. Been wonderful working with them, so I appreciate the time that Marco has been allowing us. And lastly, on Friday, we'll be doing some training across the district on Performance Matters. It's a kind of an extension of Power School, where it will allow us to data mine and also track interventions of students. And there will be other components later down the road where we can actually have assessments done into Performance Matters, and students can take the assessments and it will automatically score it into the grade book for teachers. So we are just starting that process, and we have coaches, administrators, tech coaches, and other teachers that have tech interest that will be doing that training on Friday. So we look forward to getting that started. Any questions for me?
Thank you, Kathy. We'll move down to director's report. First up is Norma Jean.
Happy holidays to everyone in advance. Technology report. Now you've messed up my mouse. Jeez, now you have to click. Okay. All right. So Kathy had asked, because we were asked, I think a couple meetings ago, what teachers were using, if they're using a website or if they were using, or if they were using different programs. And we talked a little bit about Seesaw and Google Classroom. So I wanted to share the difference between the two. So we use Seesaw grades pre-K through 3. It's basically a digital portfolio for the kiddos. Parents connect as well as the kids. It's a digital learning. Can do assignments. There's a huge library of activities that teachers can pick from, or they can create their own. They can record things. The kids can record themselves, so they can create, reflect, share, and collaborate. Google Classroom, they use grades 4 through 12. It's a learning management platform more than anything else. They can post assignments, add files, add media, link YouTube videos, that type of thing. And so it allows them to facilitate their classroom. There are some teachers pre-K3, and there's some teachers 4 through 12 that might go the other way, that might have a Seesaw or a Google Classroom. And we encourage that for all of them. And then next slide is we have a new position now that we have a past budget. It's a reconfigured position, so it was nothing added. And so Jordan is sitting in the back corner smiling. Is he smiling? There we go. So we had a couple of our internal people interview. Jordan was hired for the position. And so it's a network system specialist. And I can kind of compare this to like the way John oversees all the buildings. This position oversees our infrastructure. So everything that's connected together that makes our wireless work, that protects us, our firewalls, our servers, all of that will be done district-wide by Jordan. And so we'll collaborate together. I'll report again in January about what his plan is for his first few months, where we're going through. Our first thing that we're doing is we're going to better secure the server we have here, which is our ADS server, which is kind of just sitting on a table and could walk out. And it's not in air conditioning. So to get that down to the high school into that server room with no water, hopefully, it will be in a better secure place, and it houses a lot of data. So it kind of ties into our cybersecurity. So I'll kind of tie into that as well. And so he'll be working on antivirus, spam, malware, all the stuff that we need to protect so that we don't make the news, right? Cross fingers, cross fingers. Any questions for me?
Thank you, Norma Jean.
Thank you.
Up next is Jonathan.
Good evening. A couple news and announcements on a facility side of things. The Oak Hill High School cabinet installation is going pretty well. You can see the 3 pictures on the bottom show the what I call ground zero, the classroom that took the most damage. So all the cabinets were replaced in that room, along with the science office that is adjacent to that room, and then a teacher's room just to the other side, as well as another laboratory that was affected a little bit. So cabinets have been going in, plumbing. They have some touch-up work to do throughout the halls, and some more cabinet installs, which are working their way through the schedule of the installers. So we're hoping that over the next few weeks that these classrooms will be completely cleared out and fully back to operational again. My annual EPCRA Tier 2 reporting has started. So for those that don't know what that is, in essence, the EPA requires many entities, and us included, to report on what we have for hazardous materials. So for instance, our underground oil tanks, now that we've done a district-wide propane project, our propane tanks that are above ground, anything like that. And the purpose of that report is just so state, local, county entities know what we have for hazardous materials, so they can plan accordingly. So that reporting is going to start here in early January, and we'll go through March. Over the past month or two, I've been focusing on boiler and elevator pressure vessel inspections and certifications. So that requires an entity from our insurance company to come out, inspect all of those, be it elevators, boilers, pressure vessels, meaning steamers have pressure vessels underneath them in the kitchen. So they get all those inspected by Hartford Steam, and then we get certifications from the state so we can prove that those are safe and operable in our schools. I'm conducting budget walkthroughs currently with the school principals, and then also with the head custodians. So I've done 2 schools so far. I have 2 more tomorrow, and then working in the last school sometime next week. Just getting a perspective from both myself and the principal as to what maybe we want to think about including into next year's budget. And then, of course, in mid-late January, we'll be sitting down and discussing further. And then just on the transportation side, I know we've been putting out quite a lot of updates, Katie and I, throughout the past month or two. Just in the past half an hour, I did get an email from a local community member who's been going through some bus driver training that they've actually passed their passenger endorsement test, written test. So now that they already have their CDL, they have now passed the school bus and the passenger endorsement written test. We can get them training with one of our bus drivers for behind the wheel, road and range. There's no hour restrictions to that. It's basically as soon as our driver feels like they're ready to take the test, they can submit the test, as long as they wait the state law 15 days after they get their commercial learner's permit. So cross our fingers that we can continue to work down that path, and then have another bus driver with us. And then just real quick, upcoming projects, Sabattis primary water fountains, getting those installed and up and running. The Libby Tozer sewer pump panel, so we can avoid a failure there. And then the Oak Hill High School ceiling insulation and some tile work to further prevent what happened to us last February. Okay, any questions? Laura?
I'm sorry, it's coming. So the busing situation with the drivers, how many, we have one that passed, how many short are we?
One that meaning the one I just reported on? Well, we have 4 total positions that are not being driven on the road, 2 that are filled by current employees just not driving, so that leaves us with 2 open to hire positions currently in the budget, not to include sub-drivers, full-time bus drivers.
And do we have any part or per diems or part-time or substitutes or?
We have 2 substitute drivers now. They're actually MSAD 75, so that's Topsom's school district, and they're actually covering our pre-K, 2 of our 3 pre-K runs on a regular basis.
So we have two open positions, 2 that are filled but could use subs because they're out, and then the pre-K run is with the Topsom ones. Is that correct?
We have 3 pre-K runs. 1 is being filled and driven by an RSU4 bus driver, and the other 2 are filled by MSAD 75 drivers.
And so we have 2 positions posted on our website as well in all of the appropriate places.
Mhm.
And then I did see there was also some signs out by the road. I think maybe I missed the last meeting. So have we heard any feedback from any of that?
I have had some inquiries and had some people. I was actually hoping for an interview this evening. I'm yet to hear back from the individual, but someone who already has their bus licensing. And I think part of that and the interview on Channel 6 actually sparked some individuals to call and ask me about potential employment, some without any licensing, and we're working with them to try and help them through that process. And then 1 or 2 individuals with their licenses, just working through some some things with them personally, so we can maybe see about getting them in the door. Yeah.
Thank you.
Doug?
This one might not be too pleasant, but the black bus. I mean, we've all most of us have kind of heard about it, but the black bus seems to be having some difficulties. I was curious, who are we putting on to monitor the black bus now with all these troubles?
Sure. You're referring to behavioral issues regarding students. So
I feel like these are things that should be brought up
Sure.
for everybody, especially everybody watching. So
Yep.
I'm going to start trying to hit with these so that they're shared. But yeah, I read today that we have people that are monitoring. It sounded like there's potentially 2 or 3 people that might be having to monitor because of behavioral issues. I mean,
and I hope I didn't confuse anyone by saying 2 or 3 at a time. I just mean 2 or 3 people we know of who are willing and able to get on the bus, 1 at a time. We've had Sheena, our trip coordinator, hop on the bus the past 2 days in the evening to help not only get the bus to and from with the sub driver, but also mitigate behavior issues. Megan Brown has offered her time to hop on the bus. She's actually going to be on there tomorrow morning. Tuesdays and Thursdays, she said, worked really well for her. So we're going to look to integrate, the SRO onto the bus. We also talked about Megan conducting along with one of our bus drivers. So maybe some in-school training with some of the younger students who maybe need some reminders about bus behaviors, things like that. Because I think a lot of the times some of those behaviors can actually be addressed in a positive way, right? So through training and through understanding. Sheena actually reported to me that she sat down with a student who was a little unruly on the bus, explained why it's important to be safe on the bus, and it was like a revelation. The student was like, "Oh, I get it," and they sat there and were great the rest of the ride. So sometimes it doesn't always have to be, disciplinary. I guess there's ways in which we can educate some of those students, and then, but yeah. So we have, those 2 individuals who are looking to try and be on the bus as much as possible. I have heard from some volunteers about hopping on too. So Katie and I, at some point, probably tomorrow, I'd like to discuss, what the rest of the week and next week could look like in terms of bus aids. Yep.
I mean, is there thoughts, speaking of the education, as trying to have maybe a bus safety course for the younger grades, like pre-K through 2nd? I don't know. Is that something that's been thrown out?
Yeah, certainly. All those things have been thrown out. I've been talking with Megan quite a bit. That was done last year. I think in some capacity it was done this year, just maybe not district-wide. But Megan and I feel strongly that sitting down and using it as an educational piece to the students would be really helpful. And I think also not only having Megan sort of lead that, as well as having one of our bus drivers, right? So an actual, licensed driver. Hey, kiddos, this is why, this is how, this is the reason. It might ring true to a lot of those students. So yeah, all things that we're looking into and considering to do. Yes.
Is it just the black bus, or are we seeing this to other buses going on? I don't.
Generally, we're seeing more on the black bus run. We see behavior issues on every bus. Some buses, just depending on situationally and number of students, maybe you see some more. But currently, the black bus behaviors are where we're seeing more of. Yeah. Yep.
Bob?
Yes, I just want to be clear. So people that we get volunteers to ride the buses have to go through background checks?
Yeah, I think Katie could comment more on that. I'm just saying I've been getting emails very recently about individuals in district, some of which who I know very well and who probably already gotten a background check conducted. But anyways, things like that Katie and I will talk about. Certainly wouldn't just pull someone randomly to throw on a bus. It would be vetted, certainly.
again, for the record, these people, that they're still costing, right? The town still needs to pay to deal with the discipline issues on the bus.
Sure. Yeah.
In
Yeah.
some
I mean, if Megan's not, if she's on the bus, she's not doing something else that we're paying for, right? So it's sort of a cost benefit or a return on investment, right? Where do you want to put your assets and people to help the problem at need or at hand? But ultimately, yes, it does cost money to reallocate individuals who maybe have a different job duty description.
Exactly. So if you had a concern about cost, trying to get the most bang for your buck out of the money, addressing the discipline issue is something that people could try to do. Personally, they could talk to their kids. Right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So
Christy?
I have a policy question.
Okay.
I remember earlier this fall, we looked at bus policy. So I just wanted to check in to make sure that those policies that we've adopted are actually helping our drivers address these behavioral issues, or do we need to do more?
Overall, yes. The policy specific to bus write-ups and behaviors sort of outlines like a 1, 2, 3 strike rule. However, I think we all can agree that not every situation is black and white. There's always some gray area. There's always some reason behind why the 1, 2, 3 strike rule doesn't work. I've talked with some building principals, with Sheena, the trip coordinator, with some bus drivers. We've had instances where 1 strike was plenty, and to justify a change in either where they were riding on the bus or if they're riding the bus at all. Certainly, we've exercised the full 3 strikes depending on the student situation or the nature of the behavior, I guess, itself. So I think having some more eyes on the students, but to my point to Doug was that I really think it starts at education at the school level, having Megan and another bus driver do some education. If we start with that, we're going to hit a lot of students in a positive way, and then we'll then narrow down the behaviors and then focus on those at a much more granular level.
It might be helpful to send some things home. Because
Sure.
some of this is a home responsibility. We
Yep.
can't put everything on the school. I think as parents, it's important for us to tell our students how to behave on the bus. I know before care, I have a 3rd grader that sometimes rides black bus, and today I looked at him and I said, if you ride black bus, the expectation is that you're a leader.
Mm-hmm.
So if you see something, say something, and show the little kids, because he's a big kid, what it looks like to sit on the bus the right way. So I
Sure.
think all of us in the community also have a voice and need to remember that we need to remind our kids, especially black bus, thinking they haven't had a bus for 3 or 4 weeks. Not that that's an excuse, but just to remind them of what the SOP is and that they need to be good bus riders, because our driver has 60 kids that they have to bring to school safely.
And we like to stress the importance to our drivers too, that first and foremost, it's focusing on the road. They have to be paying attention to the drive, to the other oncoming traffic, everything that we oops, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Sorry, Brian. I'm here to talk sports actually too. Yep. Great.
We had Blue Bus had a accident just the other day, so they need to focus. Right? To your
Yep.
point.
Yeah, and that was the bus driver did everything by the letter of the law, by the book, and thankfully the only damage was a tire. Right. But the point being is that they need to focus on the road, the oncoming drivers, and the surrounding environment, and to focus or to be staring at a rear view is really challenging. So these bus drivers need and should feel the support from both the district, from parents at home, to try and really establish good bus behavior from the get-go.
Sorry. I have 2 questions. Have we looked at any of the videos on the buses to see exactly what's been going on and for how long?
So for the little while there, I didn't think Northeast had cameras on their bus because they are using a Northeast charter bus.
Mm-hmm.
They won't use ours. It's come to my attention that they actually do, and I've requested some video to help dial in sort of what those behaviors look like. So they're working on sending me some of that video currently. Yeah. On our other buses, we do have bus video, and if we need to pull that video for behavioral reasons, we pulled it for the accident that happened on Friday to help with the insurance claim. So very helpful in a number of ways. Yeah.
Okay, because I think parents want to know, and I'm a parent of a black bus rider, and I've actually been in contact with the principal last week and this week, and I know what's been going on, and things are escalating. And my rider didn't ride today and won't be riding for the next few days because daycare is closed. But I think that the parents want to know what's going on, especially if it's my child. My child will be held accountable and he will be reprimanded. And I think we need to make sure that we're following the policy, whether it is 1, 2, 3, if it's, you still have to weigh if that one needs to happen. And I think it might need to happen for the majority of them at this time. But that's for you to decide and the policy to be followed. But I did want to also touch upon the fact that PBIS was mentioned on the November 11th school board meeting, that it was also being used on the bus. I wanted to understand how that might help us here.
I guess I'm not sure I can comment on that. I'm not familiar with
The
PBIS.
tickets, and we're going to we have an administrative meeting tomorrow with administrators, and we're going to talk a little bit about that because you and I talked about the tickets.
Oh,
today.
sure.
Remember,
Okay.
It's about, they're
Okay.
getting the good notes.
Sure.
But just to let you know, the trip coordinator did write up 10 students yesterday on the bus. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Real quick, I have one more. Is it my understanding the contract with Northeast expires this coming Friday? Is there any? Are we looking to extend that or?
Yep. Yeah. So I was supposed to tell them by noon today if we needed to extend to next week. We did have some potential for one of our bus drivers who are currently out to come back next week. That's been prolonged just a little bit. So I reached out to Northeast and confirmed that we have them and their services through next week as well to get us through the break.
And it will be the same driver. We did confirm that.
Yes.
So we're hoping with consistency and someone on the bus, things will improve.
Thank you, Brian. I mean, Jonathan. Now you got me going here.
Okay.
All right. Brian, I'm sorry, I can't have you ask your question. It was for public comment. This isn't public comment time. I apologize. Brian?
Oh, all right. Good evening, everybody. As you see, I have Senior David Hall with me this evening. David reached out to me about a month ago asking to do a job shadow / internship through his Job for Maine grads class. So David has been accompanying me through different athletic events, checking in during the day, keeping me on my toes, making sure as soon as I got out of meetings, he's there to ask questions to see kind of what happened, what did we talk about. So it's been a really cool asset. So I told David there's no better way to really dive in instead of just doing it. So he's going to do my first slide of the board report.
Nice.
All right.
So we have, sorry, height problems these days. So from high school and middle school sports, we have sports for girls and boys soccer for middle school and high school sports, and in high school we also have girls and boys ice hockey, including cheering and wrestling.
Just to kind of piggyback on this. So as you see for our high school athletics on the left there, that's the amount of students that we have currently participating in each of those. We do have a handful of co-ops during our winter sports season. So for example, our girls ice hockey program joined Lewiston High School this year. So we have some ladies playing for the Blue Devils. And then our boys ice hockey is a combined co-op with Poland, Great New Gloucester, Levitt, and Oak Hill. So they're the P-Log Kings. So we're playing for the Kings. And then for wrestling, we co-op with Lisbon High School, which has kind of been on and off for years now. So those are our co-ops, and this is just giving you kind of an idea of what we have for participation. I am pleased to announce numbers are going up last year compared to this year. So it's things that we're kind of evaluating year to year, season to season, seeing what went well, what didn't go well, what was positive, what wasn't positive, how can we improve things. Is it equipment? Is it gear? Is it new swag? What can we do to improve the overall experience for athletics at the high school and middle school? So, and then second, so I know there was some conversations at the meeting I walked into just before school board today. So we did have some concerns with our weight room at the high school. So to give you like the whole backstory of it, back in 2009, the weight room's currently in the basement of the high school. I don't know if anyone knew that. The entrance is on the back side of the school by the football field. There's only one entrance to the weight room currently, and it's actually an exterior entrance. There's no other connection to the school. Back in 2009, there were some concerns, and a company came in. They put in fire-rated sheetrock, fire-rated doors, sprinkler system, did all those things. At the time, we got a note from the current fire chief, and they said, okay, it's safe to use. Fast forward from 2009 to 2023, there were some concerns that kind of came up, just, general safety concerns. We got the fire marshals involved. They came in and just said, yeah, even though technically your square footage space, you're actually okay. You really should have a second means of egress. So that was about 6 weeks ago, roughly, give or take. So when we kind of got that note, we kind of hit the ground running to figure out how can we solve this issue, noting the budget situation that we're in. We obviously did not plan or have the funds to make the current fixes that we need to get it back open. There were two suggestions. One was a temporary suggestion, which essentially would be cut the space in half and put a wall up, which would then the capacity ratings for storage to assembly space is different. So by cutting the weight room in half, it would make more of it storage and less of it assembly space, which would make it usable with one means of egress. But with that being said, we're cutting down the opportunity and the numbers that can actually be down there. And there was also a couple other sprinkle things we would have had to do for only having one means of egress. So that was option one. It was more of a temporary fix. Option two was actually installing a second door to the weight room, which, as we said, was underground. So we kind of looked into it a little bit. You can see in my little rough sketch there on the bottom where it says new door with an arrow. That is where the new door is planning on being installed. We've reached out to local companies and contractors who are donating almost all of their services, which was fantastic to hear. So they're, fingers crossed, hopefully going to break ground sometime next week. They're going to be excavating out the side of the building, removing all the ground, putting in proper drainage and all those things for water flow. We have another company coming in and actually cutting out a hole in the concrete, so that way we can remove the current concrete wall, and then a third party coming in to install a door. Excuse me, the door will be installed, creating a second means of egress, also solving any sort of ADA compliance that we didn't or could potentially have in the future. So just kind of wanted to update you on all that. It's been a lot of conversations, a lot of feeling people out. It's awesome to see our community kind of rise and gather and support us, because they're all people who live in our communities, have kids who are either currently or have already graduated from our school and are just supporting our athletic programs. So, and I will note as well, by allowing this to happen, we'll also open that space to be used for educational purposes. So it'll also open up that for classrooms and other parts of the school to use, not just as a weight room. Any questions?
Bob?
Yeah, two comments more than questions. One is, we used to have a very vibrant wrestling program at the high school. I think when I first moved into the community, it might have been my first or second Oak Hill budget meeting. There was talk about eliminating wrestling. That was the largest turnout we've ever had for a budget meeting. And there were actually people making threats to us up in the bleachers about if you closed wrestling, what they were going to do to us. And I'm just some guy sitting up on the top up there that nobody knew. I'd only been in town for 6 weeks or something. But so it's disappointing to see only two. Second of all, this is great news that these companies or individuals are contributing. I think it would be appropriate to name them so that they get the recognition for the support to the community, instead of just saying local contractors, individuals. So if they have a company, we ought to be thanking them anytime that they're donating something like this in our presentation. So,
so
others can thank them as well.
Yeah, so two parts. First thing, wrestling, extremely disappointing. You're right. Unfortunately, that's just the status of wrestling across the state. There's so many programs. I mean, most of the wrestling conferences have dissolved at this point, and numbers are just dropping everywhere. We actually tried to combine our Lisbon Oak Hill co-op, actually tried to join another co-op this year to make like a super team, they call it. It was going to be 5 schools coming together just to try to actually field a full wrestling squad. And that didn't quite work out. Certain programs thought they had numbers, so we're still looking to see what's going to happen in the future, but it's definitely a concern for wrestling across the state. The only reason why, so to part two, I didn't name them yet just because the project's not done yet. And I didn't want to either miss someone who joined in later, or if something came up and they couldn't do it, I didn't want to recognize them initially. So when everything's done and the project's completed, I'll be sure to acknowledge all those folks. We've already talked about putting signs up on fields and making public recognition. So we do give them the praise and support for helping us out.
Thank you.
So as Litchfield, both of you,
I'm just kidding.
as Litchfield is exploring leaving the RSU, what type of impact would that have on our sports program?
It'd be detrimental. I mean, we drop classifications depending on numbers and athletes who participate in which sport could determine if we're able to stay whole or drop to a lot of 8-man programs. Soccer, football, and pretty soon field hockey are also exploring dropping to their full field size down to 7 or 8-man teams just to allow different squads to play. So, I mean, it'd be detrimental. I mean, you look at numbers across the board now. Girls basketball has 12 girls at the high school right now. If 3 of them are Litchfield, we don't have a varsity basketball program anymore. So it's hard to say without looking into that specifically, but it has the potential to be devastating.
And especially to Litchfield, right? Their numbers they're only like a third of the teams. I mean, because it sounds like you're speaking from the RSU4 perspective.
Yep.
It would be devastating. To the Litchfield perspective, how would they even be able to have teams?
Yeah, I couldn't answer that.
Yeah,
Without knowing the fine details of all of those workings, I couldn't honestly. It could be devastating either way. I mean, you could look at Litchfield residents who may or may not be able to participate in a certain sport, or Sabattis and Wells residents who may or may not be able to, and also too not knowing specifically numbers of current sports teams and where athletes are. There is the potential it could have no impact, or it could totally dismantle a program, right? Like without diving into that, I can't really answer that.
Thank you.
Just one question. You said they were going to hopefully break ground next week. How long will that take? When will it be completed?
What I've been told is that each step will take roughly a day. So excavating will take about a day, cutting the hole will take about a day, and then installing a new door will take about a day. Of course, with weather and nature and who knows what else, we were initially supposed to break ground initially it was about 3 weeks ago, but then things keep kind of getting pushed off, and I'm just kind of waiting on the mercy of contractors, and because a lot of them are donating their times, I feel like I can't really be riding them about it. So I'm trying to play nice in the sandbox and be like, "You're coming tomorrow, right?" So I was told Monday that it should be within a week. So
Thank you.
yeah. Any other questions? Thank you.
Jim? And you'll notice I skipped Nancy. Nancy's out ill, so she's not here, just so that you know. I might have to lower that for Jim.
I know, huh? That's way high. There we go. Good evening. So the first slide is we talked about a babysitting course a couple meetings ago, I believe, and we do have one in place. We need 6 students at a cost of 102 to be able to break even. So our minimum amount of students is 6, and they can take up to a maximum of 12. So hoping that course will be able to run. It's on the 6th and the 13th. It's 2 Saturdays. So if you know any young middle schoolers who want to get certified, they get their first aid and pediatric CPR. So also working with the same organization and with Brian to try to offer a CPR first aid AED course for coaches and community members. We're not at the number that we need to break even at this point, so we're still trying to promote that to see if we can get some community members. We have 3 coaches that need it. I would need 3 community members to do that as well. Defensive driving, this is something we've offered the past couple of years. People come back in and they get points put back on their license by taking this course. So we're offering it on January 29th and January 31st. It's 5 to 8 p.m. There's not any cost for us to offer this class, so we charge about $10 just so we have a little bit of revenue coming in for the adult ed program for the defensive driving course. I'll also add that our driver's ed courses have been pretty full throughout the first part of the year. I anticipate a little bit of a down enrollment January and February because of winter sports, but then it should pick up in between the seasons again. That's usually when parents sign their kids up for driver's ed.
And then we're looking to coordinate with Boomer Tech Adventures. It's an online program. The way we do the finances with that is they charge $25. We can charge what we want for the class, so we'll upcharge it a little bit so we get a little bit of revenue. These are some of the classes that they're looking to offer. A lot of iPhone and iPad and Zoom classes, and then somehow cooking is involved with that, but they do a cooking with Boomer Tech. So that's kind of what we have going on. We're working on the brochure for the winter, spring catalog. I'll also mention that Sundays, Laura has headed up an open gym that we're sponsoring through the Adult Ed program on Sundays at the middle school, and I think she had 20 athletes, adults and students, for the month of December. I don't know if you want to talk more about that, but that's been nice to be able to offer that to the community.
Yeah, it's gone really well. Everyone just comes in and they bring their own basketballs and hang out and play. And some of the bigger kids, 7th and 8th graders, played with 4th and 5th graders, and I don't know, they held their own, but it was fun. And yeah, it's fun to watch some of the adults try out there to beat these kids, but there's a lot of smack going on.
A little trash
So
talk.
I've been asked, I do have to connect with you because I've been asked to continue January and February, so I
Sure,
guess
sure. Yeah, and one of the things that I've thought about is possibly starting a men's, women's basketball league out of this, possibly
That's when
to.
a bunch of parents were like, can we just get some adult an hour at a time? And I'm like, you need to go talk to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's all I have. If anybody has any questions. Yep.
Right.
I'm going to ask about an idea that Laura had brought up either at the last meeting or the meeting before about education for public voting for our towns, and was wondering if that was looked into, where we're at, and what we might think we may be able to do with that for before the next vote.
Yeah. So I think I was confused as to what the request was. Was it the process or was it the actual the financial piece of it? So I did reach out to people, and they suggested Randy Greenwood might be a good person to do the process part. So I'm working on contacting him. He was our guest speaker for graduation last year for Adult Ed, so I think he'd be willing.
And then I was just wondering if the babysitting course was going to be maybe in the middle school newsletter that goes out, or how is that kind of being communicated to that?
Yeah, I can send it to Amy for the peak, and also put it on our Facebook page, and we can get that word out. Yep.
And then as well, do you have anything listed for the bus driver training education? I know we had something on the district, but if there's something repetitively kind of posting, going out.
Yep, I haven't put it on there, but I can put it into our Facebook page, and I can put it into the brochure as well that the district's looking for bus
Awesome.
drivers.
Awesome, thank you.
The brochure should come out mid-January, so
Thank you, Jim.
thanks.
Okay, we will move down into old business 6.1 to. It doesn't say it over here. I would have had to do an adjustment. So, would you like go ahead and introduce our new student rep, Destiny?
This is Lily Ames. She's a junior. We get called Dilly Sames because we work together now. Yeah, so I'm really excited to have someone else who's also a student here too.
All right, old business 6.1 to approve the first reading of the following policy, JICH, drug and alcohol use by students.
Seconded.
All right, any discussion? Scott?
I think the issue I have with this policy is the same issue I had last time with the lack of reference to the other policies. As an example, the new marijuana policy.
Yep, so we did look into that the last time. I think we talked about that. It does not need to reference if the administrating of medication to students JLCD, that is where the marijuana is on that piece. And so because it's referenced in the cross-reference, we actually don't need to put it into this part of the policy. So we did check on that. So it's in the JLCD. If there's changes to that happen, then both policies are updated.
Sure, but it says prohibited conduct under the influence of all these different drugs, including marijuana. So how can you say it's prohibited, but then in another policy you say it is?
Because it's only allowed as a prescribed medication with.
Can we not indicate that it with an exception of prescribed?
At the policy committee, we decided not to, because that was the exception to the rule was in the other policy.
Would you not be opening yourself up to litigation if, say, somebody had a prescription for a substance and there was some adverse action that happened because it was prohibited, because they were under the influence of that? I mean, you get two conflicting policies, that's all.
And I know it's hard. I think there are a lot of policies that crisscross each other. And so it's just that's why you reference at the bottom. Like there's other policies connected to that policy. Because all of our policies don't include language.
Well, I would agree with that, but there's
Yeah.
no reference on this policy at the bottom of the other policies.
Oh, it doesn't have. But it has a legal. Oh, I'm getting the frown from Kathy. Oh, that's why. It is referenced in the.
I have read on the one that was emailed, but it does. I don't have a reference. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah. The first page is, the second page is not.
So we'll bring it back to the.
No, this is the one I have. That was crossed out.
So I would withdraw my second if you'll withdraw your.
Thank you.
Coming back again.
So we'll go ahead and move on to new business 7.1 to approve and sign assessment warrants and installment school schedules. Sorry. The motion is I move that the warrant of assessment of tax and the assessment schedule and notice of installments for each member municipality prepared by the treasurer for fiscal year by approved and by be issued in form presented to this meeting, and that the treasurer be authorized and directed to deliver to each member municipality its warrant for assessment of tax and its assessment schedule and notice of installments. Thank you. Any discussion?
I would like to amend it to replace this 7 in brackets to 2024. So treasurer for the fiscal year, bracket 7, bracket, don't hack it. Which I think it should be treasurer
Oh,
for
it's in the
fiscal
master-
year 2024.
Oh, on the actual schedule, it says the right dates. So on the actual, it says
Oh.
treasurer for the fiscal year, July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024.
Okay.
It does say it on the original, but on here it does not, yes. Any other questions?
Just for the people out there that might not know what a warrant for assessment of tax, because the school budget passed, now we have to sign the warrant so each of our towns know what to collect in taxes. So that it's just it's part of the paperwork.
It's just
trail.
So my other comment is, so the motion that was read, when you read it, do you read 2024, or you just kind of skip over
I
that?
didn't, I skipped over that. 'cause
All
I
right,
didn't
so-
see that.
So it's the motion that would be read that we're voting on, not one that's printed someplace else.
Okay.
So
So then,
amend the motion to whatever the words are in there that follows for fiscal year.
so I'd like to amend the motion to include the fiscal year July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024.
Been moved and seconded to,
Who's-
for that amendment.
Okay. Discussion on that. Oh, all right, seeing how there's none, I'll ask for the vote. Scott?
Yes.
Laura? Yes. Bob?
On the amendment, yes?
Yes. On the amendment. Laura, Nicole?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Christy?
Yes.
Brandon?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
I'm a yes.
So now that becomes the motion
So now your motion is,
as amended. So
As
now
amended.
You vote on the motion as it was amended.
so now we're voting on the motion as amended. So now just go around,
Yeah,
right?
roll call.
Yeah.
Scott?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Scott, Diane? Christy?
Yes.
Brandon?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Sorry about that. I'm all thrown off this evening. Sorry. 7.2, the assistant superintendent and principals presenting the fall NUIA data. I ask as board members that you wait till all of them have been presented before you ask any of your questions, so that we can just, instead of having it go over, because one person, like we had last time, might answer the questions for everybody. So we'll just hold off for your discussion until everybody is done with their presentations.
And just so the board, what you just approved, you will need to sign before you leave.
So I'm going to start off with our data presentation, really to set the stage about what you're about to see, because half of this board has not seen the data before, and half the board has used to seeing our data presentation with STAR, and we wanted to make sure you understand the difference between what you used to see or what you may have seen in the public, and then also what you're kind of seeing tonight. So can you go to, I don't have a click, oh. Vanna, perfect. So as we kind of talked last year was our first year using NWA, and I want to be clear that in our students in RSU4, there are 2 NWA sites that we give the assessment. So K2, 9, 11, and 12 use one NWA site, and grades 3 through 8 and 10 use a different NWA site. And part of that is because 3 through 8 and grades 10 are all part of the MEA years, okay? So I just wanted to kind of explain what our teachers use and also what the scores look like when we start getting the data. So in the fall, we get a diagnostic, and we kind of talked about a RIT score, right? So it is that fancy term, gives us a digit, and it gives us a range of where our students are at. This is very helpful for our teachers to make informed decisions regarding where students are at and what instruction needs to take place. The state of Maine allows us to do an optional one in the winter. In RSU4, we choose to do that because we like to see our growth. As you know, that most of our schools are using growth as part of their school-wide goal. So having a winter check mark helps us understand where kids are at and making informed decisions. So there's another diagnostic check in the winter. In the spring, however, there is, for grades 2, K2, 9, 11, and 12, they just have the diagnostic part. So their test looks the same fall, winter, and spring. It's adaptive. So as students answer scores or answers test questions correct, it gets harder. As they answer incorrectly, it gets a little bit easier till they get into their perfect zone, and that's how they get their RIT score. Grades 3 through 8 and 10 have another third of a test that actually is the summative piece, and that's where we get the score that's against the grade level standard. So where that spring diagnostic, it's kind of, it adapts to the student's level. The summative piece is a requirement under MEA through that federal law that says we have to compare a third grade student to third grade standards. And so a third of the test actually does that. And so we get a different score. And after our principals do the presentation on our fall diagnostic, at the end, I'll show you what our spring scores, summative scores, were for last year, because those got released at the beginning of November. next. Oh, there you go. So when we used to have STAR, we only had 4 colors, and they were in different orders than NWA. So, so we just want to make sure that people understand what colors each thing means. So when we're talking about meeting the standard, we're really looking at the 3 colors: the yellow, the green, and the blue. So anything that's 41 percentile and above is considered meeting the standard. So when you're looking at our data today, and that is the state as well. So that's not our cut scores, because I know when we used to have STAR, we actually had a higher cut score than what was recommended. But that is actually, everyone in the state is using yellow, green, and blue. So when you're looking at our data today, when we're talking about proficiency levels, you'll be looking at those 3 color bands. You also know, if you're used to STAR, green used to be the highest, where now blue is the highest color. So it's just a little bit different order, and there are 5 colors. However, when we get to the spring assessment, there are only 4 colors, just to make it fun. But we will we will get to spring when we get to spring. So for tonight's purpose, you will see 5 colors, and you'll be looking to see the yellow, the green, and the blues as meeting the standard. So just want to talk about a little bit about growth versus achievement. So in your slides tonight, you will notice that we added the spring 2023 data and added the fall. So you'll be able to see some growth for that cohort of students. So in terms of, like, if I was a 3rd grade slide, you'll be looking at how the 2nd grade spring scores compared to the fall 3rd grade. So you'll be able to see some growth in that way. But most of the time when we're looking at fall data, it's really our baseline data. So this is really achievement data that we're looking at baseline. When we come see you back in the winter, when we come in February, we'll be able to show a little bit more of that growth from this year, as well as making those connections to our school-wide goals. So we're really looking at achievement today, looking at that, where our kids are right now, but you can see the growth that they had from spring to fall. And without further ado, Mr. Miles.
All right, thank you. We can go ahead to the, do you have the clicker, Norma Jean? Oh, you can do it, Marco. All right. So the first thing up here, this is just our baseline data for Libby Tozier for kindergarten. So the first one you see up here is math. Now, you have to remember, these students, for some of them, this is the first time they've ever entered a school building before. It's at the beginning of the fall, and that's really what we are looking at here. Up at the top, you'll see our proficiency percentage. So in the fall, I believe that says 76%. I was trying to look at the bottom there. Up at the fall. Yeah, it's okay. Sure. There we go. A little bit. That's all right. All right, I'm going to keep going, and then no big deal. So for the fall, as you can see, we have 76%. So 76% are meeting the kindergarten proficiency where we want them to be. If you flip over to the reading one, the next slide there, Norma Jean, or sorry, Marco, I'm all lost. It's not. There we go. All right. So for reading here, you'll see that 83% of our students are currently at our kindergarten level, which Kathy had told you where that is for our kindergarten students. A lot of this credit goes to our pre-K program. Not only do they do an amazing job with 64 students each year, but these students transfer into kindergarten. This year we're using the same program for reading, which has definitely shown us great results. Here that they're coming in, they're ready to read, they know how to express themselves in various ways. And while some students are still at the very beginning levels of reading, they all have been exposed to what reading is in a school, how to go about reading and the fundamentals. And what we've seen a lot of is that anecdotal evidence from teachers who are noticing a difference when their kids came in. And I want to say this was the very first week, actually. The kindergarten team came up and said, we see our students are ready to move forward, and they're progressing at quite an impressive level, to be honest. And we think a lot of that has to do with that transfer from pre-K to K. If you look at the next slide up here, it kind of talks about our school-wide goals for 23-24, which we discussed at our previous board meeting, where we want 45% of our students to exceed in math. There's personal growth goals, 1 point in writing, and then also 85% of students responding to interventions. The next slide up here, though, is really what we're doing for our action steps. So, yes, it's great that kids are coming in. They're excited about reading from pre-K. Some of them are actually starting to read sentences. Other ones are doing repeat words and other pieces. But we still identify students that need additional support. So early on, right away, mid-October, we've identified those students for reading interventions. So they work with our Title I Ed Tech, and they go in and they do regular interventions in the classroom. That data is collected, monitored, relayed to their classroom teacher, so we can make any adjustments in the programming if necessary. We also have coaching support. We have our literacy and math coach that we share with SPS. And monitoring and adjusting is key, right? We want to make sure that those students who need the intervention are receiving it, and when they're ready to go back into the classroom full time, they're back in the classroom full time. And those students who are ready to move forward already, that are already highly progressing, are doing that as well. And then we have our regular classroom visits, of course, throughout the school. And so we really all-encompassing supports one another. We do not have our math interventions until later on in the school year. Last year we started out in January, which is the recommendation for any math intervention at that kindergarten level.
Good evening, everyone. So, not to sound too redundant, but as you know, pre-K through 4 has the same school-wide goals, and we have a lot of shared staff where we have a lot of the same interventions. But this is our math data for first grade, and that's the fall benchmark. Typically looking from spring to spring, that's when you see the most amount of growth. So you're going to see a little bit of a backslide with just that summer work. However, with summer school, we have been seeing an increase in performance, showing that our summer school program is really paying off. So that is our math data where we have, I can't see the number. 52%. I appreciate it. 52%. I thought I'd be able to read that a little bit better, but I apologize. No, it's really good that you wrote them down, but I just figured I'd be able to see them. I have pretty good eyesight, but I can see the 49 very clearly with the fall, but we can go ahead to the reading now.
Which year is that? Label's probably at the bottom.
The label, so spring 2023 is the first, and then fall is the second. Because spring was when they were in kindergarten. Correct. Fall is now. Yes. Okay.
Yes, we really want to look at this upcoming spring to really see that full cycle of growth, which is going to be really important to see. And so we are getting ready to prep for that winter NOEA testing, and we have also created some really incredible resources for our staff to use to help improve our scores and connecting it to our curriculum. So that they can look at, okay, where is the student at and what are the resources that they need in both reading and math. If you look here, we have that 42% for spring and then 47% for fall for proficiency. And that right there is a testament to our summer school program, as I said before. You can go ahead to the next slide. Second grade, that's 66, correct? Okay. It's the font, you guys. And then 66 again for fall. And for reading for second grade, it's that 65, and is that 56? Thank you. So again, with first and second grade, we have the same supports. If you go to our next slide, school-wide goals, same as Dustin's that he said. And with us really having a high focus in math proficiency, we want to see a lot of growth there. What's really cool about the through assessment is they actually, for third through 8th and 10th grade, they have these amazing resources that you can go through, click on a student, and see exactly where their work needs to be done. So you can just break down their entire test and then see, okay, these are the certain things that they need to work on. And it's really comprehensive and great. Whereas first and second grade does not have access to that through assessment resource. We actually created it with connecting with our math coach, and we actually worked with the Math for Me department, and we created a Google Sheet with each RIT band where you can go through for each bucket, and a teacher can go in and say, okay, if I have a student in this band scoring in this area, these are some of the things that I can pull out through this particular unit, create a small group, and then track growth. So it's been a lot of work this year to be able to get to that point. However, it's work that we can use for time to come with this test. And it's already been put to some wonderful use. We already have groups going. Teachers are, if you go to my next slide, thank you. Teachers are doing targeted instruction for those students, and we're doing constant professional development. Actually, when we come back from the break, we're going to pick up right where we left off and dive right into getting ready for the winter NAWIAs, creating the most successful environment for students, and then what are we doing next? So we have this data. Are we seeing growth, and what can we do to support that growth for spring? We're doing individualized feedback. What's really great is when we had conferences, we were able to give a snapshot to each parent of where their students are, and right on there, it talks about what can you ask your school about your student. It gives some like questions to ask, and it creates meaningful conversations so that parents can understand too, just because it is a new test to the district. We're monitoring progress, doing intervention strategies and Title I services, and we are excited to get Performance Matters, just because that is going to be like the hold all for our data. Right now we have really incredible data sheets that we can just transfer right into that, but it just shows where each student is at and what we are providing for supports for them individually. And then Dustin again.
All right. So for Carrie Ricker, the first slide up here is third grade NWA math. So again, spring is on the left-hand side, and we have fall on the right-hand side for growth. So in spring, you're looking at approximately 62%, and I believe fall there is 56. So for math, we have a lot of exciting things that we're doing this year in order to get that up. So a couple of different things. Curriculum alignment is a big piece that we're looking at, especially for third grade. Collaborating with teachers, with a math coach, to make sure our lessons align with the curriculum, helping to reinforce key concepts and skills. And also just professional development around that, right? Understanding exactly what our curriculum is, how we can best use it, the resources available to us. We have a lot of manipulatives and other pieces that are supplemental that we can get into the classroom that can really support all of our students. So we're looking at particularly students here that are meeting that benchmark there for third grade, but we really want to make sure we're reaching the kids that are way over here and also that are way over here, right, in the classroom. So that's kind of the pieces that we've been working on this year. For third grade, too fast. For third grade reading, 50% in the spring. So again, that's second grade. In the fall, we have 64% for reading. So you can see there's a little bit of an increase there. We've been doing a lot of work, honestly.
That's a lot of increase. That's not a little bit. That's not a little. That's a lot.
So
That's a good job.
if I don't think any third or fourth grade teachers are here, but I'm sure they could tell you that we have been working hard this year. A lot of the things that we have been doing, anything from intervention planning, getting the coaches into the classroom, co-teaching, really focusing on that tier 1 instruction is huge for us. And again, the same thing, right? We're really supporting all the students, and it kind of trickles through. And yes, they're getting a lot of support, but those kids at each bar mark need the same support, and that's what we're seeing. We're starting to see it flow throughout the classroom, which is really exciting. And then in math, for fourth grade, it's kind of even there, 46 to 47. Again, same thing for math at fourth grade level. A lot of communication, too, between the grade levels is important. Okay, this is what we struggled in last year. This is what we're noticing, and so we can pick up with that and move forward. We redesigned our crosswalk, if you want to call it, the chapters in which we do the math program. Before we kind of went from, we started with chapter 4, then went to 1. This year we're teaching it with fidelity, starting at 1, research-based, and then going to the end, and we have a pacing guide so that we keep on track each month to know where we are as a group moving forward. And so by the spring, we'll hit all those units to make sure they're ready for middle school. If you go to the reading piece, same thing. We had 37% in the spring and 50% in the fall. A big piece for this, for fifth grade specifically, guided reading support has been huge. Collaborating with teachers to implement guided reading strategies, ensuring that students receive targeted instruction at their individual reading levels. So every single teacher knows through our Fontes and Pinnell assessments what level their student is reading at, giving them guided support at that particular level, either in small group or independently on a regular basis. If we want to skip ahead, same school goals, so we can go to action steps, kind of what I've already been talking about. Title I math and reading support, constantly monitoring those every 6 weeks, adjusting as we go. In-class coaching support, getting the coaches in there on a regular basis. Interventions have been huge for us. We've also added our social skills groups. We have done our at-risk assessments for students to see where they are, both intrinsically, what they need for support inside, and also are those other behaviors, those big behaviors, right? So every 6 weeks we rotate our social skills groups to make sure that we hit the kids that need those extra supports, because if their behaviors are a problem in the classroom, odds are they're not learning in the classroom. And what we've seen is some great results from that as well.
All right, at Oak Hill Middle School, what I'll do is go through the data slides first and then highlight what we're doing to support each grade level for instruction. So similar to what Dustin and Michaela have said, so fifth grade math, we have in the spring 41% and in the fall 52%. And if we go to the reading slide for fifth grade, in the spring we had 53%, and in the fall we had 63%, so a significant jump, really. And if we go to the next slide for sixth grade, in the spring we had 38%, and in the fall 52%. For seventh grade, I think so. So for sixth grade math, we had 32% in the spring and 51% in the fall. Now we'll go to seventh grade. In seventh grade math, in the spring we had 41%, and in the fall we had 51%. And for seventh grade reading, we had 53% in the spring and 60% in the fall. And for eighth grade, in the spring we had 42%, and in the fall we had 52%. So some significant jumps there. Eighth grade reading, we had in the spring 56% and 65% in the fall. So staff and students have really been working hard on teaching and learning at Oak Hill Middle School. And some of the things we're doing are school-wide goals, as I shared earlier this year. They remain the same. If you go to the next slide, the action steps that we're working on to support our school-wide goals and our students. For targeted instruction, our fifth grade teachers are working with intervention groups for math and reading, and they're tailored to individual student needs. We have one fifth grade teacher working with a social worker, and they're currently overseeing an intervention group to focus on executive functioning skills, organizational skills, to really support students and get them ready to be more independent as they move through the middle school.
In 6th and 7th grade, each teacher is dedicated 4 days a week to working with small group instruction, and it's targeted to specific skills that students need based on their assessments that they've taken. And once students demonstrate proficiency in their required skills, the team meets and they're reassigned based on the needs that are identified. 8th grade has subject-specific days, so 2 days a week they're working with students on math interventions, and then 2 days a week they're working on reading interventions, and then the other day, the 5th day, is organizational skills or things that they need based on classroom instruction. The Unified Arts teachers are also in the mix, working with staff and students in grades 5 through 8, supporting identified needs of students through the BAR program, which I've talked a little bit about this year. Our professional development is really focused this year on BAR and implementing that school-wide. And as I've said before, small block meetings for BAR, they happen weekly in each grade level. And in these meetings, all students are discussed at least once through the school year, and students are leveled based on their academic, social, and behavioral support needs. Goals and interventions are established as a result of these meetings, and the goals are implemented by team members, and teachers and staff members support those goals daily with students. Today, our BAR coach actually came and spent the day observing and supporting staff and students in small block meetings, big block meetings, and those are just different names for meetings that the teams have, their team meetings. And she was really pleased with the implementation and growth since her first visit 2 months ago, so that's really exciting. Training this fall has also emphasized small group interventions with really great reading and leveled literacy interventions, which are both designed to help struggling readers achieve grade level growth and competency. Subject-specific training continues with our math teachers, our special ed staff, all of our ed techs. They're working with a DOE math specialist who is exploring instructional strategies. They're working on multiplication, division, progressions, and effective use of manipulatives in the math classroom, which is really exciting. For progress monitoring and adjustment, we have regular team meetings, which are BAR focused, or they talk about academics as well, and how to best support students. And there's a lot of data analysis that's happening, and they're using that to inform their instruction and make adjustments accordingly to support students as needed. And then finally, classroom visits. The Dean of Students, the Assistant Principal, and I are in classrooms daily, and we're providing support for staff and students based on content, instructional needs, academics, behavior, and anything else that they might need. Thank you.
Before I get started, I just wanted to say that before this meeting, we met as principals, and my colleagues made fun of me for writing down all of the scores because I said, I want to really make sure they can be able to read those. And they're like, we got good eyes. Well, you did say that. Somebody said that. Thank you. Thank you, Michaela. I appreciate that. All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for a few moments of your time to talk about high school NWEA data. And so, as Amy did, I'm going to go through the slides here as far as our scores are concerned. And then at the end, I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing to have our students grow from our fall testing window to the winter and then through to the spring. And so these are our new students, our 9th graders. You can see on the left-hand side in the spring, they scored a 39%, and in the fall, they had a 52%. That's for math. Come on now. No, it doesn't. Oh, well, there it is. There, okay. For reading, it was a 49% in the fall, in the spring, excuse me, and 57% for the fall. And now I'm going to tell a little story. You can see here, there's a little bit of a difference in regards to the remainder of our classes, and these are kids that are currently at the high school and were with us last year. And so last year we tried a little different approach with our NWEAs. We made it an event. So what we said to everybody is we're going to do these tests on this date at this time. and the students didn't necessarily show up for those tests during that time. And so the participation rates for our students were not great. And so we changed that because obviously we want data so that we can do what we need to do to help support students grow. Obviously it was something that we tried. It was the first time that we had done it, just because in years past we'd always given these tests during English and math classes, just because they're more relevant. And obviously when you take away context and relevancy for really anybody regarding anything, these are the results that you get. So baseline data is really what we're focused on as far as the remainder of the school is concerned. And so you can see as far as our proficiency rate for fall, and these are our current 10th graders in math, we have 38%. Ooh, sorry, my phone here. And then for fall, and you can see this one did have good percentage rates, participation rates there. So the spring was 37% in reading, and then the fall was 55%. For 11th grade, it's not really, I mean, it's funny, but it's not really funny. So the 48% there is our baseline for the fall. All right. And then 11th grade, you can say decent participation there. So we had, let's see, 11th grade reading. Did I skip the math already? Well, I apologize for that. No, I did that one. I apologize. All right, I didn't skip it. I just want to make sure I'm on track. Thank you for your help. So the 28% in the spring and then 44% in the fall. And then our seniors, so I had 0 participation or 0 students meeting the proficiency in the spring and 44% in the fall. And then for 12th grade reading, we have 53% in the spring and 58% in the fall. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, as far as our return to our normal testing, we had like 96, 97% of our students take the test. So just change in the way that we do things sometimes. And again, with relevancy and context, it does make a difference. So just a reminder in regards, I've bolded the 2 top scores since we're talking specifically about our school-wide goals in both reading and math, and that's that growth of 45% of our students meeting their growth goal between the fall assessment and the spring assessment. And then what are we doing at the high school to make sure that students grow? Well, first we gave the test and we had excellent participation there. Staff, we've reviewed data. We've taken a look at grade level reports. We've looked at specific class reports, and we've looked at the learning continuum. And that's where this comes into play with team reading and team math. And so something that I've gone around and talked to the students about, again, giving relevancy and context, is to explain to them that our teachers are committed and they're working in 2 different teams. They have a team reading. There's a group of teachers, team reading, that goes throughout the entirety of the high school. And there's a group of teachers that are committed to team math, and they're focusing on the grade level average scores in that learning continuum. And what all the teachers have done is they've harvested a skill that they're going to be focused on between now and the winter assessment, put it into a giant spreadsheet. And what we're going to do is we're going to see how effective, that focus is. Because when we take the winter assessment, we're going to see whether or not they grew. And if somebody had some exponential or some large growth between fall and winter, we'll be able to specifically identify what it was that they were doing to help students grow, which is excellent. And so that I've also been going into classrooms, which has been a blast. I haven't made it to Destiny or Lily's class yet. Did I make it to yours? All right. Thanks, Lily, for that. So yes, she can testify. I've actually been in classrooms and talking with them about their individual grade reports. I apologize for repeating myself, but relevancy and context. So talking with them about their specific score, they can compare it to the national average, them on their report what their spring score is projected to be. And so we talk a lot about that's what we're working on. That's what we're focused on. We talk a lot about growth as individuals from the time that they walk in the building as 9th graders until they graduate from high school. You will grow academically, socially, and emotionally. And so the work continues, and it's been a wonderful experience so far, and look forward to the growth ahead. Ta-da!
So, as we mentioned, this presentation will be linked on the website tomorrow so that community members can see. And then what I'm passing out, and you'll also have links on there so Diane will be able to see it too, this is the spring data, and this is a comparison to the state. So you can kind of see it breaks it down by the first set is reading. The second page is the second page just is the same data. It's just broken up into different graphs, and then the next page is math. So you can kind of just see once again it's updated on the dashboard. We'll let you know so that you have the most updated. I will say that our team of literacy and math coaches. So as part of this process, right, we're looking at our summer school program, and we can see from spring to fall where our strengths and weaknesses are. So we're starting to drill down onto students and kind of see which students didn't attend and which ones had some regression, and being mindful about maybe doing some specific invitations next year. And we're also looking at revamping some of our math curriculum because we didn't make as much gain in math area that we did in reading. So that's our work is going to be doing that on Friday.
Okay, now any questions? Christy?
Start. Kathy, this one's for you. So you just passed out to us around the through assessment, and I feel like this is where a lot of people in the community get caught up. And they'd say, oh, RSU4 is just doing so horribly. We're below the state expectations in math and reading. Why should we continue to fund this RSU? However, in looking at the presentation that we just saw with the growth, it says something different. So are we comparing apples to oranges here, or apples to apples? Are these the same things? Can you help us make sense of this? Because I think this is where the misinformation happens.
Right. So in terms of like using data, this isn't super helpful because we got this in November, and at that point, the students had already taken the spring and the fall, and so our teachers were already using the fall data. So in terms of using this, and hopefully it will be in real time. So in the spring, as you saw, we're going to have a full year, and you'll have the diagnostic portion, and then you'll have the state. The teachers will get their growth data within 48 hours, and then once the state closes it, we'll be able to get in this comparison. So data is used in different capacities, right? So this data is to compare how are RSU4 doing around the state. It's not necessarily telling us how our kids are doing and using it in the classroom. So the data presentation we're doing tonight is how are our principals and our coaches and our teachers utilizing the data to inform their instruction and making the growth. And that's why we're really focusing on meeting where our kids are at and trying to move them forward as far as we can, because they keep changing the assessment. This was just kind of that benchmark because we keep getting asked, right? Like, how are we doing? The reality is you can't compare this to previous data because the test was different. So that's comparing apples to oranges. So if you want, when I say the ESSA dashboard has not been updated, it has not been updated since 2021. So you can't compare it to this data. It's two different tests. So once it's updated, then you can do that. So this is the data you want to share with folks. So when people are asking, how are we doing compared to the state, this is what you can do. Once the data dashboard is updated, that's where you can compare. You can start clicking RSU4, and you can compare our graduation rate to Lisbon and Turner and all of those other places. But so this gives you a preview of how are we going to be doing and how it's going to be updated in that snapshot. But really what we're doing, the work, the hard work, when we make our budget, we're saying, here's what we need for literacy materials and math materials. We're using the data we just showed you. Is that clear?
I have one.
Doug?
This is kind of for all the principals. I'm just wondering, for this exam, do the teachers and the principals, do you get example questions? And I kind of wonder, specifically for high school, it seems like with that drop, is the test more challenging, having dealt with science standards in my previous time as a teacher? I noticed that I've dealt with two different science standards. They would change quite a bit, and then the test questions would be not, you would get things that weren't even something you'd be prepared for. So I didn't know if that's something that's hitting you and impacting these results. Or I don't know.
No, that's totally fine. Like, so, well, yeah, no. I was just in regards to your first question about like practicing. So there's a practice test that students can take, and so get used to the layout and the features of the test because it's online, right? So that they can do that. The other aspect, as far as the curriculum alignment is concerned, I mean, that's a lot of the work that we're doing with Kathy, right? So like, when standards are updated from, whether it's the state level or national level, depending on which ones we're using in the school, like we take time to go through those and update all of our materials. And it takes time. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, Kathy has spent a large amount of time at the high school. She mentioned the English department in particular, and that's, updating those standards and making sure that what we're teaching the students is accurate and representative of what the standards are so that when we're assessed, we know. And I was kind of saying that about like having that giant spreadsheet and saying, oh, that's really working. That's not. It's the same process. I mean, you should see, it's really awesome. Like if you're really into spreadsheets, it's super cool because everything is embedded in there. You have your standards and you have your assessments and you have your learning plans. And I mean, all of that stuff is laid out. So that again, if something's not working, we can drill down to almost the exact assessment and find out whether it's working or not. So that's, as far as the standards are concerned, as things are updated, we update too. It may take us a little while, but we do it as best as we can and as quick as we can.
But remember, the test is adaptive. So if Destiny takes the test today and then takes the test tomorrow, it's going to look completely different. Because if she might have gotten correct and then it gets harder or it gets lower. So it's adaptive. It also means it's not like the traditional, like you get the booklet, everyone would open up and everyone's got the same question, right? It's going to continue to change as you go through. So it's not like we can test prep, right? And it's not specific questions and not every kid in the classroom is getting the same test.
So another question. So as we're entering budget season again, I can't believe I'm saying that because we're finished. Share with us what really impacts test scores. What kinds of investments really impact test scores?
I think the biggest piece is we've been focusing on, I would say when I came in RSU4, we had 0 curriculum in Tier 1. So you didn't have you didn't have a reading program, you didn't have a math program. We had 0. So in the years, we have certainly done a lot of look at what kind of curriculum do we need and done a lot of professional development. We are now getting to a point where we're adding good Tier 2 instruction, so in curriculum. So figuring out what our skills, we're getting down to the skills. So you're seeing data, big data numbers. What we're seeing is when I look at a student, I'm looking at specific skills. Christy needs this. And so do we have curriculum that matches and gives her the support to fill in those gaps? And so I think when we're looking at it, we're spending a lot of our time when you're talking about professional development. Amy said about BAR. Well, that's Tier 2 of behavior. PBIS is at Tier 1. We're doing the same thing in the academic world. So we have investigations for math, and then we have open up math for Tier 1. We're starting to look at do the math and other bridges and other things that we need to do to gap fill for our students. And that's, I think, the biggest impact that we're starting to kind of see.
Nicole?
So I have a question about the data that we saw. I thought you were handing that out. So is that going to be part of the presentation as well? Is that part of the minutes, or is that just what was presented?
It will be on the website as well.
So what was presented there, those graphs, as well as what was handed out? Okay, so my question about that data and the fact that we've heard a couple of times that it's adaptive, you won't have the same test, and it's not apples to apples, how can we trust that the spring to fall is apples to apples? Like, how do we know that that growth is factual, it's true, and it's not fluctuated because of transfer outs or opt-outs or number of students and those types of statistics?
I got this.
You're all jumping at things. I mean, I think there's some variables every year you're getting move-ins or whatnot. But I think one of the reasons why the state chose NWA is because it's nationally normed. And so there are millions of kids that get to that point where they figure out the RIT bands and where kids are going. Where the state is saying we need to have that summative portion is to compare our students to the state. That's going to be I think your benchmark. It's like everyone in the state of Maine is taking that portion of the test to our state of Maine standards, and so you'll kind of compare. So that's where the apples to apples are, and then I think that's why we're saying growth is because we're taking what we're going to say to you is this is achievement data, but we're also going to give you the school-wide goals is growth data, and so the principals are going to come up and say, Nicole's goal was, or she scored here in the fall, and then did she meet her growth goal, yes or no, and we're going to give you that percentage. So it will be completely apples to apples because we're doing growth goals.
Okay, so that's not just growth overall with, the percentages being tossed out of the 56 to 60 or whatever. Like that's really, but it's more so that the growth of the individual.
Correct.
Okay.
So the beauty is and we can show you some of those reports that like I can say like Jan can pull her class and it will have the whole class and it will show you like, yes, she met it, no, he didn't, and it'll give a percentage of how many kids met their growth goal. And we'll be able to show you that in the winter.
Okay. But the fall data is proficiency levels.
This is achievement.
This is achievement. This is all students and where did they fall in the bands.
Yeah.
Well, it's just, parents or listeners, viewers, they're hearing growth and the percentages may present in a different way. And I want to make sure that everybody understands that it's not just, 50% meeting it. It's 50% have grown.
Yep. And parents can always ask their... Not on this,
Not
right?
on this,
Yeah,
right.
not on this. But every parent can ask their classroom teacher for the profile, and it will show you where your child was in the spring and the fall and what their projected goal is.
Great. And I did have one more question about the handout, where it says the below and the state expectation. It looks like there's a range. Do we know what the ranges are, where we fall within that range, where they were on the lower end or the higher end? Because you have, high school 1494, which is RSU4, but the state is 1505. So it's about a 10-point range.
Yep.
So I'm just curious as to what the ranges are for each.
I can get that to you. It's a different range for each grade level.
Okay, thank you.
It's not a very big range. Diane?
I have a couple of questions and comments, actually. Having been in the classroom, I know we always see what our kids are going to be like and everything. I'd like to see us use our Title I people earlier so that we can work with those students who we know in the spring are going to fall again in the fall. So I think using them earlier with those kids might be beneficial and help those kids. I know the lower the summer slide, so I think we could really benefit from using them immediately and not waiting so long for kids to be identified in Title I. Another question I have is writing rules. I know writing is so important, and I didn't see anything as far as writing scores yet. Is that something we'll see in the fall, in January? And what if we do for those kids who don't qualify for being in Title I, or who qualify to be in gifted and talented? Is there something in the classroom to help those kids so that they don't have to wait for the others who really need support, and especially in math? I'm hearing from some parents that their kids are doing a lot of waiting while the other students try to learn what's being done. Is there something that could be utilized for those kids to help them? And I know they're doing ISL or whatever, but sometimes too much of that is not a good thing.
Hey Dan, I'll try to answer your first piece, and for the Title I, I will say last year when we started Title I at Carrie Ricker, we waited about 6 weeks. We looked at the data. We wanted to get a better feel for our students. And over the summer, we had a meeting and kind of thought about, okay, how can we hit the ground running? I actually think it was in June we talked before we left, myself and especially Deb Witham, the math coach at Carrie Ricker. And so what we did is we compiled a list of students' recommendations first from teachers, cross-analyzed that with their NWA score. And when we came in day one, we had a list of students that were going to start Title I. So we actually started this year, I want to say we started on a Wednesday maybe, school started the first day, and Monday, the following Monday, we implemented our Title I programming to give those kids the supports. We gave them a few days to get comfortable, of course, in the school. Also at Libby Tozier, we don't have a lot of data on our students, so we had to do some reading assessments. We also did the math EDMI, which you might be familiar with, and a couple other pieces, so that when we did have that initial data, we started about the second or third week of October. At Libby Tozier, or at least at the kindergarten level, it's recommended not to start Title I interventions early on for students, especially in math. You kind of want to see where they're at. Everyone's at a different pace, and we want to make sure that we're not putting someone in a program that they might not necessarily need at that level. Third and fourth grade is obviously different for us. So yeah, we start, I can't speak for the other schools, but we start right away as far as those interventions go. The other piece was writing. In our slide up there, it did talk about our school-wide goals. Writing is a school-wide goal for all of us, and we want to increase 1 point in our writing score from fall to spring. The NWA does not assess for writing, so we use those scores for NWA for reading and math. And I forgot your third question. I'm sorry.
Speak about your small group focus.
Yeah,
Focusing on-
so for differentiation in the classroom, I think, Diane, is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, not only at Carrie Ricker, but
Oh,
at
sorry.
Oakville Middle School as well. I'm hearing from some parents that kids are waiting, and
Okay.
that's what I'm concerned about too.
So I can just speak real quickly, then maybe middle school wants to take over. As far as gifted and talented, we have a list of students. We meet in the springtime, several times last spring, to make sure we get those gifted and talented kids support for third and fourth grade. We also offer performing arts, gifted and talented as well. That's continuing on this year, which is new for Carrie Ricker, both for academics and the performing arts. So we have a list ready to go day one, and they did a great job making sure that was implemented. And then Title I, we take a look at that every 6 weeks. We have a cycle. We say, are these kids ready to exit Title I? Or do they need an additional 6 weeks? Or do we need to take a look at other options for them, whether that's special education or other areas of interventions?
So Diane, to answer your question, the content teachers in all grade levels have worked together to provide opportunities for differentiation. So they have enrichment and extension opportunities for students to work on. They do have virtual chalkboards where they can go and extend their thinking and learning on a concept that they're working on at that time. So they do have opportunities for differentiation at the higher and lower levels in the classrooms.
So you have kids, you have children who don't qualify for like GT, who get maybe a teacher recommendation, because we can't all rely on one score to get them into a program.
Yeah, so one of the things that we've done unique in RSU4 is we've done tiers of GT. So we have tier 2, and which are kids that need enrichment but don't qualify for gifted and talented, and then we have tier 3 of those students who have met all the criteria and have been identified as gifted and talented. We offer tier 2 and tier 3 grades 2 through 8, and then there's like a different hybrid version for the high school gifted and talented. So we are actually, typically your gifted and talented is about 3 to 5%, and we are much above that because we are doing a 2-tier approach. So some of our tier 2 gets pulled out, and sometimes it's enrichment in the classroom. It just depends on the content and also the grade level. But students that get identified either through a survey at the end of the year, we actually analyze all of the NWA scores. So I'm actually meeting with the GT teacher this week, and we make sure that all the fall, if there's anyone that is meeting that criteria, we actually will
test them to see if they qualify.
Bob?
Yeah. So Diane brought up a good point about students waiting. 10 years ago, 9 years ago, this body, with the members up there at that time, was kind of directing that we would teach students basically on a continuum of education and not look about grade levels as being so hard and fast, so that students could progress at their own rate. And some of the discussion then was weekly regroupings in the lower grades and put students that were excelled in a group so they could continue to go. And we kind of started down that path, and for one reason or another, it seems that the system went back to the old system, and was never brought back up at the board, those things. Today, 10 years on, 9 years on, whenever it was, we have the great tools and I always like to use math because it's something I'm familiar with, and it works well. We have tools in the classroom. Every student is issued a tool that would allow students to never have to go and wait. So if they are advanced in math, there are math programs out there that can be accessible on that tool so that they can continue to go on. And if we find that third grader doing fifth grade math, great. Let's expose them to some sixth grade math and keep them going. So it would be great, I think. And back then the discussions, and it was a board thing. I was just one of many voices, is that ideally students that are ready to advance, we allow them to do that, whether it goes into the next classroom, the higher classroom at that math class time or whatever, and participate. And those who need the support get it. I was at a donuts and coffee thing this morning, and one of the people that have been fairly successful in life talked about how they were held back 2 or 3 years in grade 3 because they were having trouble. I know I was held back in 6th grade, I believe, and then I took an extra year and a half in high school, because I needed to repeat some things. We, years ago, got in a habit of taking a third grader who is not successful in third grade math and stick them in 4th grade and hope that they'll be successful in 4th grade math. And we can only give them so much. So you look at all the bars, the big changes were not in the low groups, it's in mostly the middle groups is where the big swaps were. So those people that were substantially below, those numbers seem fairly consistent from grade to grade as we go along. And that's because if they don't know how to subtract, don't try and teach them how to multiply, or certainly don't try and teach them how to divide. So we have to be cautious of that. I know nobody likes their student kept back, but if that's what's going to make them more successful in life, then that's really what's best for them, and it's what's best for the taxpayers to get their students to be proficient so that they can be successful at whatever their endeavor is once they leave our school system. So, the board tried to move towards somewhat of a different model, and there was a lot of pushback because we were giving students multiple chances to pass the test, and with basically a pass-fail. We wanted them to know the basics. Once they had the basics, we let them go on. But if they needed 2 or 3 times to show us that they succeeded at it and they learned it, that's what they got. And we talked about there weren't going to be grade point averages, and people, and how are you going to get the number 1 student, and a lot of pushback from the community. But we wouldn't have had students waiting, and I don't think we would have had as many students in the lower performing brackets if we were not putting them in a situation where we haven't prepared them to be in that situation.
Thank you very much. We will move on to enrollment numbers.
No,
Yeah.
it's just one. So this is,
We got these in our packet.
yeah, you got them, and I just printed them just in case.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so I made extras in case the audience wanted copies as well.
Katie, can I interrupt you for a second?
Of course you may.
Destiny and Lily, if you would like to go, you may go at this point. You don't have to stay for this. Okay.
Because it's getting late.
It's getting late.
Yeah.
But we never got a report.
That's next.
That's next time.
Oh, you just said report.
No,
Oh. Student rep report, oh, January 10th.
Yeah.
that's why I skipped over them.
Yeah.
That's right. So this is what you're given each year about October 1 count. So this is what goes, we put in all the data for our ED 279 formula that goes into the state. And so you can see by town, by grade level, what our totals are. You can see what our superintendent agreements are, out of district placements, and homeschool numbers. You can see that we are down 58 students from last year. That will impact our funding formula from the state. So you will see that. You can see we had been averaging around 100 per grade, and that is down. And then I've been working really hard around superintendent's agreements as best I can, with people asking to go to other districts. I've denied several. I had several upheld by the commissioner as well. And of course, we welcome when people want to transfer in. So constantly working on bringing that number more in line of a 50-50. We have about 60 or so that go out, and we have 20. What did we have there? 24 that come in. Okay. So we would like to obviously switch that, have more coming in than going out. And so those are the numbers, and I did share with Litchfield their numbers per grade. So they had that, and it came directly from this report. We do, and I can share that with you next time.
Anyone else? Nicole?
I don't know if Laura was going to ask the same question, but I'm curious if these numbers are impacted by the transportation issue, because we had asked for those numbers about how many students weren't attending due to transportation. I think it's been a couple of meetings now. I was in the audience at the time. I don't know that we've received that information yet, so I'm just wondering what that impact has.
I did give information at the last meeting on approximately, this would have nothing to do with transportation. These are students that are enrolled in our schools. It's not, this isn't about attending as in they come in every day.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think maybe though it would push some people to choose to homeschool or things if they have to transport their kids all the time and it's not a reliable way to get them to school maybe, but
I've not seen an increase in homeschool applications.
So is this 2022, we had 108, and then 2023 we have 124? That 108 at the bottom, I just assumed since it was in the homeschool section, so that's an increase, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So these numbers combine with the was it May 1st numbers or April 1st for our DD 279 takes last
Yes.
spring, and these numbers
Yes.
combines them, divides by 2, and that's the number.
Correct. Yes.
These are the numbers that are used in our funding formula.
Correct.
They're not combined with the spring. It's just the October 1st numbers that are used in the funding formula.
It's a 2-year average. It's
Not for
2-year
not for student numbers.
for enrollment.
For our local funding for our extra.
You're talking about the 50-50.
Right.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
For the 50-50.
For the additional local share.
This is the numbers for the 50-50.
Right. Yeah. So for the additional local share,
We
funding formula these
Mhm.
numbers are used because
Yes.
it's 50% student,
Correct.
50% property valuation.
Yes. So for June, in June, when we put it, this would be the numbers.
Correct. I just
Yes.
let people know that it's
Mhm.
the numbers in the 279 may be different
Yes.
than the numbers that see in our budgetary numbers, and that's the reason why.
Correct.
I was just curious at how many superintendent agreements there were last year. Do you have that number?
At the top of my head, no.
Can I get that number?
Sure.
Thanks.
Superintendent agreements at what?
Last year.
Yeah.
This year. Because there's 42 this year. So I was just curious at what point they
Yeah.
do with those.
And how do we make out by bringing people in? We just get the state funding, right?
Yes. Well, they go into the formula.
Right. So
Mhm.
our additional local that it costs us more to educate each student than the state gives us, by bringing more students in, we have a higher cost that we're not getting reimbursed from by our own taxpayers have to pick that up, and not the sending school.
In the superintendent agreements, they are in our count that go into the state funding.
State funding only.
Correct. Yeah. And then, okay, you're asking, I know why you're asking. Yes. So not in the additional, correct. And so when you have 60 going out, those districts are collecting on our students and we collect on their students. The money follows them in a superintendent's agreement.
Only state money.
The state funds, correct.
So-
in
so my-
in the formula.
So my point is when you say you want to get more in, if we had, while exact 500 students that come in, we'd get state funding for 500, but the additional amount that it would cost us to educate those 500 above and beyond what the state funding level is, all becomes a burden of the taxpayers of this district. So I don't see it as being advantageous to bring out of district placements in. I think they end up costing us. I mean, one or two, you absorb it, there's no additional cost. But as soon as you get enough in any one particular thing where you might have to add one classroom teacher or you may have to, different types of things, it now becomes a more costly impact on our local residents and our additional local. We're only going to get the state funding from them. So
Well,
it's
you
my
have
concern
six-
when you
you had
talk
s-
about
well, you
trying to
had-
bring them in.
Well, no, but you have 60 that go out. So you've lost 60 students to the state funding.
Right, so we don't have to pay the additional local for them because they're not a cost to us.
Well, you're making assumptions that they would cost the district more money.
So would then it make sense to target the homeschool student and try and recuperate some of the losses to homeschooled students?
They're already residents, right?
Right.
So those homeschooled, their parents or whoever that the person paying the taxes is paying for an education in the public system that they're not using. So if you bring them back in, we don't get state funding for homeschooled students.
No.
No. So we would get that state funding, and the additional local is the additional local, right? So we would get state funding to offset, which would help us. So yeah,
Because I believe that number has increased, right? Since
It increased from
from
2022
108
to
to
23.
124.
Yes.
and it's been increasing over a number of years. I mean, just like student population, we were at 1,601 when the RSU was formed. All right, and we're down now to what, 12 something?
1269.
1259. So, that's a significant decrease from the 1601 over the 10 years of the RSU, and it's been going down. And who knows? Sharon will tell you that we might see a great bump in population because the state law changes and what you need where people can put housing. So we might start seeing an influx coming back up in students. But it's been, and it was forecast when the RSU was formed, we went out and we got a projection from, I think at the time was the Androscoggin County Planning Commission or somebody like that. They did long-range forecast on student populations, and they showed that they were going to decrease until about the 2030s, when people that were graduating, going out, getting jobs, started raising their families, they would come back to the state. We're seeing a little bit of that, and then we might see the population go back up. But it was going to be a downhill. So those things that we were looking at when we formed the RSU,
Can you just help me with what outside placements are?
Special education.
Okay. So those are all
Superintendent agreements last year was 17
17
total.
in. And how many were out? Do you know?
Don't have that on my.
Okay, that's what I'm here. So we had 17 in 2022, and we have 42.
We have 24.
In the 9.
Okay, the combined, yes. So in superintendent agreements for elementary last year was 9. Several, yes, we do. We honor employee students, as well as if they are an employee in another school district, we often honor that.
Anyone else? We'll move on to 7.4. To approve the first reading of the following policies. JHB, truancy.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing as there's none, I'll call for the vote. Scott?
Yes.
Laura?
Yeah.
Bob?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Christy? Yes. Brandon?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
I'm yes. Thank you. JKAA, use of physical restraint and seclusion. Any discussion?
So the change was just because the law changed.
All right, seeing as there's none, I'll call for the vote. Scott?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Christy?
Yes.
Brandon?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. JKAA-R, procedures on physical restraint and seclusion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion?
Again, updated because of the law.
Seeing as there's none, I'll call for the vote. Scott?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Christy?
Yes.
Brandon?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
I'm yes. Thank you. We'll move on to 8 committee reports. Finance and Facilities Committee, the financial report. We have a new chairperson for that committee. It is Doug.
Oh,
You forgot his job already?
Laura was kind enough to type out it's a little neater than my handwritten notes here. Oh, credit where credit's due. I don't know if anybody can hear me. All right, so the Finance and Facilities Committee met today. Sam was out sick, and we have a new member, a new board member, Nicole Russell, was present for it. And so we elected a new chair, which became me. Let's see, old business. We charged for the building consolidation plan, selected committee members from the applications. We had a list. The superintendent Katie can, if you don't mind reading the list of people. We need did you want me to read the list, or do you want to read? All right, so we have, out of the 3 towns, each town had one person representative from the select board and 2 community members. So Wales has Eric Gagnon from the select board, and Matthew Early and Mia Cody. Did I say that right correctly?
Yes, you did.
They're the community members.
She's smiling in the audience, so yeah.
Sabatis has Noel Hinckley with an alternate for Mark Duquette. Okay. Duquette. from the select board, and then community members were Kristen Garrett and Brad Edwards, and then Litchfield. Litchfield, nobody from the select board at this time wanted to volunteer for the committee, so I guess we can run that by them one more time, and they can respond in writing if they nobody wants to do that. It would be really nice if we could get somebody to do that. That would be really, to at least represent, even if you don't agree or you do agree or whatever, just somebody to represent. The two community members were Betsy Haskell, I think I said that correctly, and Darren Collins were the two community members. So the agenda isn't quite set yet, but we will be meeting on January 10th for our next finance and facilities meeting and all that. So we'll do, let's see, we went through the members. Just want to make sure I don't miss anything too much here. Yeah, some of the issues that kind of came up during it is that we may call upon subject matter experts for certain discussions during the committee meetings. We tried to, we didn't get a million applicants, but we tried to go through the applicants that required going through to kind of get a varied background as far as a base of information and insight into that committee for the school closures and stuff. New business. We went over the November financial report. Sam, who was out again, she left notes, but I don't remember. Does he go through all of the percentages? Do I usually go through? Does the chair of the Finance and Facilities Committee usually go through?
They're in
the packet, and people have access to that correctly. Correct, right? All right. Let's see. A big hitter, or not a big thing that came up, was the bus drivers. We're kind of investigating on staying with Social Security as a retirement system or going to the main state retirement consideration, because some of the bus drivers.
Just to be clear, it's not our current bus drivers.
It
was applicants that have looked at the job, and we do Social Security, and some are in main state retirement.
Okay.
So there's been no conversation with our current drivers.
Oh, with the bus drivers.
This is something that's been coming up with applicants.
Okay. Yeah, it's not an issue. Yeah, it's just a thing that's come up to look into, I guess. Correct. Is the way. Okay. Let's see, the copiers. So our copiers are under lease. I guess the lease, and we lease to purchase, and that is coming up. And we have to decide whether or not we want to renew the lease or purchase them. So that will be something that's coming up as far as finance goes. And then we heard about we discussed the weight room project, but we also heard about the weight room project earlier today. So that was what happened. All right. So I don't need to. Yep. Did I miss anything?
Nope.
Good job.
All right.
Any questions for Doug? All right. CIA technology.
Diane, do you want to report or do you want me to report?
Why don't you report?
Okay. I didn't want to step on your toes. So CAI today was all about technology. So Norma Jean joined us in our committee meeting and really gave us a nice overview of what our technology needs and wants and current stuff looks like as we're thinking about developing our budget. So she talked a lot about the fact that a lot of the COVID funds that we have been accessing to pay for a lot of our technology are expiring. So how do we make data-informed decisions in terms of moving our technology forward as we look to build our budget for the next school year? And she gave us this great infographic around how our technology is supported within our RSU, which will be on the website for people to peruse, but really to just understand kind of all of the anyway, can't talk this evening, but figuring out how to support all of the devices and all of the programs and what is the best investment as we're moving forward to the next budget season. It was really, really informative. And it's amazing how much tech support we have in our district and how well organized it is. So thank you, Norma Jean, for joining us. And then Kathy gave us a little bit of information in terms of the high school program of studies. That's not changing for this next school year, so we don't need to vote on it as a board. But she did share with us kind of each class that is being offered and the class sizes with all the offerings, just for us to have a good understanding of everything that is offered in our high school. And it is amazing. Like, we offer so much for students. So that was really insightful, and we appreciate that. So that's what we had talked about today. Are there any questions?
Bob?
Is the board going to get copies of that information you got about classes and class sizes? Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll move down to board member comments. Scott?
So on November 30th, I received word from a parent that their student had felt uncomfortable with a lesson being given in their freshman health class. I went through the proper channels to request the lesson material in question. I received a class syllabus. You can see that in your handout, pages 1 and 2. This document was apparently sent out to all parents at the beginning of the school year. The claim is that this served as notification to the families about topics that would be covered in health class. I highlighted the bullet point, what happens in health class stays in health. This sounds a lot to me like things that could be discussed in class would be hidden from parents. On page 2, we can see an extremely vague description of what would be taught in class. Page 3 is a response I received from the administration attempting to make me believe that the term healthy sexuality was sufficient to inform parents of the topics of the lesson. The following 5 pages are slides that I pulled from the actual lesson plan, and they give you an example of some of the things that were contained within the lesson. And admittedly, even as an adult, I had a hard time understanding some of these terms. I had to Google them. And I really can't imagine how a young mind, forming mind, would understand such topics. This lesson contains words and ideas that are currently heavily debated and extremely contentious. There is even a link to an outside website for students to further explore on their own. And then the final page of this handout is a photo of a survey located within Google Classroom given to the sophomore class of the same health class just last week. Again, a parent reached out to me, completely different parent, that they were completely in the dark that their child would be discussing such topics without their consent. I'm not exactly sure what a student's gender, ethnicity, or sexual preference has to do with the topic of dating violence. This student told their parent that they were made to believe this survey was required. Per policy, a student survey is not mandatory. From a personal viewpoint, I don't believe lessons like this should exist in our RSU. We pay good money for guidance counselors and social workers to assist the very small fraction of student population that may be seeking help or information with these subjects. However, that being said,
And those numbers, did I get those? Did you send them to me?
You mean of who's absent due to, yes. It depends if the secretary writes why they're out. It's collecting the data. So I will look at what I provided last time and I'll send it out to you again.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
So I have kudos to Carrie Ricker and their music program. They had the most amazing 3rd and 4th grade concert last week, and Mr. Johnson is just an amazing music educator. And it was so cool to watch. I have a third grader, but to see them playing instruments and just being so engaged. And then we were able to see the gifted and talented music program, and they played Taylor Swift. It was the cutest thing ever. So really big kudos to our arts programs. I don't think they always get as big of a shout out as they do. And secondly, I think I just wanted to mention for those of parents that are listening that do live in Litchfield, this ad hoc committee that is looking at separating from the RSU, I think it's important to be informed, and I think it's important to remember why we have public education, and it's for the good of the kids, and I don't want us to lose sight of that. And it's not an us versus them. We all need to be on the same team because we all want what's best for our kids. So thank you.
I had something. On my drive over, I was going through a list of things that have come up over the past couple of weeks and we hit some of them. I think one of the big ones that it kind of happened a little bit tonight, not on purpose, it's just the way the system goes, is I feel like a lot of parents aren't feeling heard as much as I think they would ideally like. And this format, unfortunately, has an official flow to it. And I feel like a lot of people, it seems like there's some people are forming groups and kind of going rogue on the school stuff a little bit. And I think the only way we can get that back is to try to increase more public comment time. And I don't know if that gets kind of minimized just because it can lead to really escalated feelings or that kind of thing. But I think the only way we can get more parents to come back in here and want to talk is if we can give them the ability to talk or respond to things that occur in real life time during the meetings. And I know that it's an official thing that we're doing here, but I want parents back in the seats, and I want taxpayers back in the seats. And I'm all for some way that we can get them to want to feel like their voice is heard. I've talked to so many just random people when I'm out doing my things, and I'm like, oh, hey, I'm on the school committee. How do you feel about? And they're like, oh, I stopped going because I don't get heard. I stopped going years ago. I was really big in this, and I just don't get. And like that poor guy, he had a comment. Unfortunately, it's like official stuff, so we got to go through the process, which I get. But long-winded version is I think we need a public comment time at the beginning, at the end, and maybe somehow try to restructure this thing so that they can kind of have a public comment in the middle. Because not everybody's going to bring a pen and paper and write down their response to everything we ever talked about an hour ago and know to ask it. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I totally, yeah.
So, are you finished?
Yeah. See, I just point being is that for the people that are hearing or anybody out there, please tell them I want people in here, and I'm totally supporting wanting to get people in here because I want to hear what people have to hear, and I feel like I don't hear it as much, and we're not as involved, and I really dislike seeing people trying to start their own groups, trying to do stuff when really this is the format to do it in. This is the one that was set up, that is set up and should be set up to help everybody dealing with issues in the schools. So
Who knows?
So first off, I do want to thank the voters of Sabattis. This is my first school board committee meeting. And I'm very excited to be here, and I'm ready to jump in head first. I do want to echo Doug's comments. I won't get into it because it is really late, but I think the board needs to reconsider, and I think we need to take further discussion on that, the public comment time on where it occurs. I've been there. I've been writing notes at times, and then 2 weeks later I have to try to remember what I wanted to comment on. I've been there. It's not easy. And I do also want to note that aside from just not feeling like they're being heard, I think we still need to do better with transparency. I feel like that there's, we're a small town. Word travels fast, and we need to get ahead of it as much as possible. And we need to be truly transparent. I feel like a lot of people throw the word transparent around these days, and they're not truly being 100% open, honest, and transparent. I think we just need to do better at that, and that's what I'm hoping that I can help us do. Thank you.
Diane?
Kudos to the high school for doing syllabus. My grandkids took part in that last week, and they were really excited about that. And today, I had a procedure done on my nurse in Litchfield, and she had no clue that Litchfield was trying to separate from the RSU4. So you might want to reach out to people other than those who have children. And she actually was one of the first graduating classes from Oak Hill High School.
Anyone else? All right. 10, executive session. To enter into executive session pursuant of 1 MRSA 4056D, superintendent evaluation.
So moved.
Second.